Welcome to the Schools of Excellence podcast, where we transform everyday leadership struggles into powerful legacies that impact generations. I'm your host, Chanie, a 20-year veteran of school leadership who has helped hundreds of school leaders achieve what many thought was impossible through our signature programs, School Leadership HQ and Enrollment Engine. With our battle-tested frameworks and blueprints, leaders have achieved 90% parent retention, 50% less staff turnover, 15% improved profit margins, and increased enrollment by 25%. My mission is simple: to revolutionize school leadership by elevating the skills, the habits, and mindset of passionate leaders ready to create lasting change. Join me as we build your legacy of excellence, one transformative conversation at a time. Welcome back to the Schools of Excellence podcast. For those of you that are regulars on the show, you know that I am not a frequent guest hoster. That's because I'm actually pretty picky about who I bring onto the show, because I know that your time is so valuable as a listener, especially for our loyal listeners. And so when I do choose and vet someone to come onto the show as a guest, it's really because that person has something really unique and valuable to share that will be of value to you and your business right now in this season. So I'm really excited to welcome a longtime friend, Nick Williams, who's the founder and CEO of Childcare Business Growth. I've spoken at Nick's events. Nick and I have known each other for a long time. So Nick, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to dig into today's conversation.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me along.
Yes. So I'd love for you to get started with, before we hit record here, when we think about marketing and growth, specifically in childcare, I think a lot of times we get immediately sucked onto what's the latest trend, what's the latest gimmick, what's the latest piece. And so while it's important to keep up and be up to date with what's happening, there are some timeless marketing strategies that are so important to master. And so I'd love for you to kick us off with that, because I know that's really kind of the theme of today's conversation.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me is be authentic, be yourself, and position yourself as the local expert. So what I mean by that is that could be anything around video-based content, being out local in the community. So being the face of the business, as you know, Chanie, we focus a lot around family-run facilities and not big corporate chains, but that's just what we tailor towards. And we try to focus on, if you're trying to compete with big multi-site operators that have big budgets, the reality is if you're positioned as that local expert, you're being your raw, authentic self, that content is going to be around for a long, long time to come. Okay. Now, people talk about leveraging their time. So you just touched on there, what things can we do that will be around for the long term, that will always be available? Well, if you're creating content that positions you as this local expert, that content, right now you're creating that content, you're leveraging your time, because this is something that's going to be around for a long, long time to come. So the biggest thing I would say, first of all, is always authentic content. And the second biggest one, which I was going to end on, but I'll touch on it now, is follow-up. The amount of facilities that I speak to time and time again that say, hey, if a parent's interested, they'll call me back. They won't call you back. They just won't. The reality is that we have to be following up with people far more frequently now. We're all busy, especially if you're parents. We've got a lot going on, and we have to communicate on the platforms that person wants to communicate on. So if they message you through Facebook Messenger, respond through Facebook Messenger. If it's through WhatsApp or text, respond through those corresponding platforms. So I'd say right now, those are the two biggest things that will always stand the test of time. Be authentic in your content. Make sure we're always consistently following up on the platform of their choice.
So I want to ask two follow-up questions on that, because I know the story that people are saying, right? So when we talk about following up on the platform of their choice, I think a lot of leaders get very overwhelmed because there are so many platforms and there are so many different ways that people can communicate with. And so I find two camps where either we veer too strong on rigid boundaries, where it's like, well, these are the only two ways that you can get a hold of me, or we create such craziness where people can ping us through 70 different channels and we actually don't even know where leads are coming and going from. So I'd love if you could speak to that specific first before we get into just what the follow-up is, but just the channel.
Great question. I think from a perspective of we need to be available on different ones, because I'll give you an example. We've got clients right now that are getting so many inquiries for recruitment from Bing. Now, I would hazard a guess that so many people are not even advertising on Bing right now, but lots of people are using Bing as a search platform to apply for jobs. Okay, so we need to be available on them, but how do we manage that? Well, there are lots of apps out there that essentially can bring all that communication into one place. Okay. There's a platform out there called Texts. So you can have all your conversations in one place. There's a platform like Childcare Automation. Everything comes into one place and you can respond from that one place. So I think we need to get to a point where we are available on them, but we don't want to be managing them separately. We need to keep it all centralized in some type of system.
Yeah, I love that. And again, for those of you that heard Nick rattle off a whole bunch of different softwares, don't get overwhelmed by the names and feel like, oh my God, now I got to go find out what it is. Understand the high level context of what Nick is explaining, which is, yes, it could come from all different places, but see how to centralize it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your job. Go find one of your tech teachers or your millennials and be like, hey, I heard this on a podcast. We got to merge this all together. Can you tell me how to do it? Can you figure out how to get it done? Yep, totally. Sometimes we over index on what we actually have to take care of when really it'll take the millennial 4 seconds to figure it out and it'll take you 5 years. So like pass it down to the person who understands it. Let's talk about the fortune and the follow-up, right? Why do people resist following up?
I think, and this might be a bit controversial, but my strong opinion here is very much around it's a different role that some people are comfortable with versus not being comfortable with. So for example, if you take a director, they are exceptionally good at their core role, managing the facility, dealing with the day-to-day. But I honestly strongly believe that, personal opinion, and everyone will differ, that I don't think the director is the right person to be doing that initial follow-up. That's just my personal opinion. And the reason why is because it's a different skill set. If you've got to call a parent potentially 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, director number one doesn't really have the capacity to do that, but equally, it's not something they're going to lean in towards. So we always try to recommend finding someone with that skill set. Like you said, the millennial right now, find someone more that is that customer service background. Is there someone that can lean into that and likes to have those conversations? We had it yesterday. We had someone contacting us about something for our home, and the person just wanted to talk. She just wanted to be on a call for 20 minutes. If you ask a director to say, hey, every call you're going to be spending 20 minutes discussing this parent and their needs, they just don't have capacity to call 50 people a day. It's just not going to happen. So I don't think it's a case of people don't want to do it sometimes. It's more the fact of capacity is a big issue, but also this fact of sometimes you'll hear people say, well, if the parent's really interested, they'll contact us. They just don't. And I'm going to share a quick story because I think this is important. I'll never forget when we had our centers, my wife called a parent back one day. The parent had been for tours at 5 locations. And the parent said, thank you so much for calling me back, because the other 4 centers I went to see didn't call me back. And it made me feel like I wasn't good enough to go there.
Wow. I love that story because I've heard so many versions of that. And it's so true.
Yeah, it is. And I just think that just because someone's been for the tour, it doesn't mean that the parent doesn't know what to expect. So I don't think it's necessarily they don't want to do that. I just think the skill set's slightly different. And we need someone that really has the time to be able to give these parents, especially when it's that first initial inquiry.
Yeah, I think the other piece I always say is sales is service. And we have to remember that sales are not sleazy and it's not wrong and you're not being pushy. You're inviting people into a beautiful service. And so coming from that mindset is so liberating because you're not feeling like, oh, well, I'm pushing. And if they really wanted, they would follow up or whatever. No, they saw 7 other schools. So the person who calls up and invites them into the service, that's the person who gets the deal. So thank you for that. Yeah. Okay. What are some other timeless marketing strategy that is important to really adopt and install into the culture of your organization?
Yeah. So we talked about, being that raw, authentic individual, that position yourself as the expert. I think the biggest next thing is to provide value. Okay. Whether that's in terms of short form content, webinars, podcasts. We've got some clients, we talked a lot about this at CBG Live last year, around creating your own little podcast for people, and creating value-based things. Talk about bringing in local experts, a dietitian for children, maybe someone that can talk about, dentistry, whatever it is, but just position yourself as the expert, but provide value for free and don't expect to get anything in return. We could be listening to this 2-3 years from now, and it's been the same for the last 8 years at least. It's all about providing value. And you look at the people that have really grown in terms of their influence over the years. It's because they've been consistent in their approach. They're always providing value-based content.
Yeah. So, okay. So someone hears that and is like, oh my God, that's another thing on my to-do list. I don't have capacity for that. And so when we look at, again, how to share value, content is one format, creating a podcast or whatever it is, but that doesn't mean that that's the right platform for you or the right avenue for you. So when a leader is listening to this and thinking, okay, I have to provide value, what are some other ways that I could do that if I'm not a speaker? I don't want to look at podcasting or whatever it is.
Yeah, it depends. So first of all, just because you're the owner as such, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to be the face of the business. We've got lots of people that aren't the face. They have someone else that really leans into this. They love doing that type of content. So the first thing is, are you the right person? And secondly, it's a case of if you're not the right person, let's find someone that can be the face of the business. Secondly, we talk about things that we're all very busy, but we've got to look at things that can leverage our time. So if we can do something that is an invaluable piece of content that is going to be around for a long period of time, that's a good use of time. Could be used multiple times. So let me give an example. It might be that I want to talk about a misconception around, child development. Okay, maybe I've got a strong passion for that. And I create a small piece of content. It could just be a pre-recorded webinar, and I could just record my screen. That content can be repurposed into so many different ways. Yeah. It could be an audio version. It could be a mini book that you sell. We've got clients, for example, that she wrote a potty training course. She's trained over 3,000 children, so parents in potty training. She's now got a #1 Amazon bestseller book. And all she did, she took that mini training that she's been delivering to her parents. She got that content, put it into a book. Someone did it for her. And now it's a #1 best-selling author over on Amazon. So the point is, it's not necessarily about being face-to-face on camera. You can do something, whether it's an audio, you could do it as a mini presentation where you're just sharing the screen. There's lots of different ways you can create that content, and it can also then be repurposed for multiple other purposes too.
I love that. And so again, going back to the person who's hearing this and is already overwhelmed and has got a lot going on, this isn't about actioning it today or later this afternoon. This is about when you're doing your quarterly planning, when you're looking at your annual plan, whatever it is. Part of it is looking at what is our marketing strategy? What is our go-to-market strategy? Take this idea and say, hey, is this something we want to focus on? Is this something we put resources towards? Because again, you can't do everything. So this is why I love having people like Nick on, because it's like, hey, there's a bunch of different strategies. Pick the one that makes sense for you in this season. Okay. What else can a leader do when they're looking, again, at their marketing strategy?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing by far is we need to understand where our leads or inquiries are coming from, okay? Yeah. Because you could, for example, someone says to you, I need to go off and create a TikTok channel because everyone's on TikTok right now. Okay, but let's evaluate that. Go back to what Chanie said earlier. Just because someone else is doing that or someone talks about it, is it the right thing? So the first thing I want to encourage every one of you to do is to get a baseline understanding of where your existing families have come from and why they came to you in the first place. You might know some of it, but have you actually mapped out, for example, well, there's a particular pocket of parents that come from this area. Why is that? Yeah. And what we found at one of our centers, what happened, we had families traveling from this particular pocket of an area, and they were quite far away from our location. And what happened was we realized that these parents were traveling close to the highways, and they would pass our facility every day. And someone had just happened to mention us, and we got a bloom of an interest in that area. So the point I'm trying to make here is we need to know where those inquiries are coming from, but more importantly, those families that do enroll with us, where have they come from? Why did they sign up to us in the first place? Because once you know this, we can truly start to understand the cost to acquire a customer. And what I mean by that is, let's imagine that I did a podcast, for example, and I could track that off the back of that podcast, 25 new inquiries came into my business, and 5 of those enrolled into my program. It was purely on social media. There was no paid advertising, but 5 parents enrolled into my program off the back of that. That might have taken me 2 hours, bit of prep time, bit of recording, and then someone else editing it. But that was free leads besides my time. And it's going to continue to generate those parents more and more again in the future. So the more you can start to really dial in and find out where parents are coming from, the more we can actually focus on the thing that does move the needle rather than trying to be on every single platform, just in case we might get one lead every 6 months.
Yeah, because again, it's diffused energy. It's not that like, oh, we're catching all the things. It's not because it's diffused energy in so many different places. So I love that piece. And yeah, here's the thing, getting those baselines takes time. It does. It takes time, it takes effort. You can't create a real strategy if you don't know the place that you're starting from. So again, it's not necessarily something you do today, but it's looking at when will we create our baselines? Is that something we do before we enter the new calendar year? Is it something we do at the next quarter? Is it something that we outsource to someone? Do we have a marketing team that we can ask them to, hey, can you pull some baselines for us from the data? This doesn't necessarily have to be something that you do or even do this week, but baselines are a critical component of really building out a solid strategy in any department, but especially marketing.
Yeah, 100%.
Hey, school owners, I see you. You've built a team, you've trusted others with the work, and somehow it still feels like everything lands on your shoulders. And that weight is exhausting. What if you could stop carrying it all alone? What if you can finally see exactly where your leadership is getting stuck and what to do next? That's where the strategic leadership scorecard was made for. In just 2 minutes, it will give you a clear diagnosis in one of the core areas of leading a school: enrollment, financial health, staff culture, or parent engagement. You'll get practical steps and trusted resources to help you lighten your load and unlock real ownership in your team to be able to lead with confidence. You deserve this level of steadiness. So take the scorecard now so you can lead with clarity and know that your school runs on shared ownership, real standards, and rhythms of accountability.
I'd say the next one for me is, it's been around for a long time and we need to look at community-based marketing. And what I mean by that is building relationships with the community. Let me share one simple thing you could do, and you could build this up over a period of time. We do something called a Dream 100. And a Dream 100 is essentially, there are two types. You have your corporate Dream 100. So these are big companies. Maybe it's a local Amazon depot that has shift workers that need childcare. So they employ a lot of people, big company that you could go and build relationships with. Or you have those local businesses that already have your customers but are not in direct competition to you. It might be an indoor play center. It might be a local sports team. But those companies, those businesses have your families where you could cross promote each other. So how do we go about doing that? Well, let me give you an example. Let's imagine a parent comes for a tour today. We all know the standard thing everyone gives out. We all give maybe a little goodie bag. We give some kind of gift. What if instead we gave them a little gift or some, maybe a healthy treat from a local business, or we support a local business? Every parent that comes through the door, we say, hey, thank you so much for coming for a tour today. We've actually got this little gift for you from Joe's Bakery down the road.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Because again, think this parent is going to see 5, 10, 15 other childcare facilities today or tomorrow. Yeah. And what's making you stand out? Was it the 10 people, the 10 goodie bags she's got in the car? Or was it the fact of you actually gave this personalized gift from a local business? Yeah. And how easy is that to do? Because once you've got that one company on board, you might get one a month, but you're going to build that up. And again, it's called leveraging your time. We just focus on, let's build a relationship with one business. And then they might recommend another business. And over time, this is one of those things that is going to embed that long-term fundamental marketing strategy that is going to pay dividend for a business for many, many years to come.
It's also part of your identity if you want to become that person who builds relationships. So it's not always about, well, John the baker or whatever you said, sorry, the cookie guy, right? It doesn't always necessarily mean that he is your highest lead generator. But even if he brings one or two leads or even one, it doesn't matter. Who you are as a person is you want to be the person that generates relationships and creates that reciprocity and generosity. So I love that piece over there, right? Like, don't go in from a transactional place, really come in from that place of connection and relationship building.
100%. I'd say there's two more really to focus on is, First one is around purpose-driven content or purpose-driven marketing. And what I mean by that is, do you have a bigger purpose? Is it that you're providing high quality childcare, but actually you might have a particular program, you might do an inclusivity approach? The point I want to make here is that the famous saying goes, there's no money being neutral, there's no money in the middle. And the point, this isn't just about the money, but it's this famous saying that people say. And the point I want to make here is that in some respect, we need to be a little bit polarizing. because we've all had those customers that are not our ideal customer. And the reason why is because we're trying to generally appeal to everyone.
Yeah.
And there's lots of ways we can do this. We don't have to, call them out and say, hey, you're not our ideal customer. What you can do is you might say, one of the reasons why we ask all our children to be in by 9 o'clock is because we believe routine is an integral part to a child's day. Now, the people that don't want to have their child in by 9 o'clock, that just want a drop-in service, will immediately be repelled by that and obviously not come to you. That's what we want to encourage. So there's lots of ways we can put that out there to be, hey, if our values and our beliefs are routine is important, we're an inclusive center, this is what we do. Well, we don't really want people that don't have those same values and beliefs as us. And I think sometimes we're all guilty of maybe taking that customer that isn't quite right. So let's start focusing more around, let's create purpose-driven marketing that actually is a little bit polarizing and might offend one or two people, but it will help you draw more people in that are your ideal customer.
It's interesting because I actually want to speak to that because I talk about that a lot myself. And I don't think we necessarily have to take the approach of being offensive in any kind of way. It's really, it's this service is not a drop-in service. This service is a 9 to whatever service, and this is where we value. So there's nothing wrong with a drop-in service. Absolutely nothing wrong. It's just not the service that we provide.
Correct.
So I think sometimes leaders get very scared to take a standard or take a stand on a particular value because they believe that it's polarizing. But I don't know if it has to be. I think it's just, this is what we stand for. Now, there is value in drop-in services. Like when I go to get my car done, I don't want to have to make an appointment. I want to just pull up in front of the car wash place and just be able to get a car wash. Now, for someone who owns a very fancy car, probably needs to make an appointment 30 days in advance to have their car detailed or, whatever it is. Great. That works for that guy. He needs his car appointment 30 days in advance. There's nothing wrong, but there's also nothing wrong with the drop-in service that I like to do.
Yeah.
It's just servicing such a different audience of people.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the point I'm trying to make there is the information that we provide. We talk a lot about doing top tip videos. Hey, if you're struggling with bedtime routine, here's our top tips. That's your opinion. That's totally fine to have that opinion. And, it might, sometimes someone might not agree with you, but that's okay. And there is a place for what they believe. But don't be shy to come away from what you believe because there's a place for both.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think the last one for me is all around the power of AI. Okay. AI is so integral to what we do. I could run a whole day, 2-3 days around this. But the point I want to make
a week marathon on AI.
the big thing is I see a lot of people, as Chanie touched on this right at the start of this episode, she touched on the fact of people see a trend and they jump on that trend right away. And then your time and attention gets consumed into that. What I want to think about from your perspective is how can you leverage AI for more to a day-to-day integral part of your business? Now, there are lots of great prompts out there now that it's not just about, hey, write me a letter for this. The biggest thing you could do to leverage your time over the next couple of weeks is train whatever AI you use to understand everything about you and your business. And what I mean by that is feed it information. If everything's on your website, copy and paste all of your website information into the AI. If it's in your handbooks, copy and paste that into the AI. Give it as much information as possible and ask it to come up with its own questions off the back of that. Okay. Now, I could tell you today, there's a million ones. There's a thing we're doing right now with the baby AI videos where the baby's talking. They're great. But actually, is that something you're going to be reactive to? Is it going to pass? Yes, it will. 2-3 weeks from now, it's going to be gone. What I want you to start to think about AI is how can I buy back time and create systems to leverage my time instead? Okay. So I could talk to you, as I said, forever about that, but don't just think about there's a new trending thing I need to do. Or there's a new tool come out. Pick a tool that you really love, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, whatever it is. Pick the tool that you love and make that an integral part of every day, everything that you do in your business.
So I love that. And I'll take it a step further because I'm obsessed with leveraging with teams as well. Is one of the standards we have in my company is every quarter when we go over the projects and things that we're going to be doing, everyone has to present how they're using AI to make their job more efficient. So how they're
Love
going
it.
to be using AI to reduce a certain amount of hours or whatever it is. It's not that I'm cutting their pay, just because no, I want to see how much more efficient, and everyone has to present. And so if you're an owner listening to this and you have a leadership team, that should be a standard. Everyone has to be using AI, not just me, everyone. So the director, the assistant director, the enrollment specialist, the curriculum specialist, the regional manager, every single one of you must present every quarter or every month when we have our meetings. How are you using AI?
I
Because
love
it
that.
shouldn't be just on you. Yeah.
Completely agree. I completely
So,
agree.
and it's been life changing because my team comes to me with things and I'm like, that's so freaking genius. Like, I would have never thought of that. Right. And we just were smarter together. So I love that you brought that up, Nick. And again, we could talk about AI all the time, but where I want to kind of shift this conversation as we kind of, come to a close here is marketing can feel, I feel like from all the departments in running a childcare, right? Whether that's financials, marketing, enrollment, parents, teachers, staff culture, all this, marketing feels so quicksandy because things are changing so quickly. And it's like, I just figured out this. And now it's like, oh, well, now everyone's doing this. How have you been able to stay just ahead of things, but also not like get sucked into the vortex? I'm curious, just your mindset and then how you kind of support leaders in that.
So very good question. The
Yeah.
first of all is we need to track where those leads are coming from. Okay. And it's, as Hani said earlier, it's not something you could just go and do right now.
Yeah.
We need to be monitoring this over a period of time. We will always know where every single person comes from into our business. And exactly the same with all of our clients. If a
Sure.
new lead comes in, we can tell you accurately
So, yes.
not only what platform, exactly
Yeah.
what they came from.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing we need to know. We need to know that baseline. We need to know what's working. We amplify the baseline. We will always look to test new things. So, for example, there are new types of ads that we're running right now. We will
Yeah.
test one or two of those in different states of the US for different clients to see what's working. Because
Yeah.
we're not someone that will just jump in and go, hey, we've seen this. We now need to roll this out for every single client. There's a great platform that we're using right now that we're exploring, but we'll only release it for a few clients first to prove the validity that it does actually work.
Yes.
So how do we allow that in a day-to-day business? Well, first of all, number one, get that baseline, you know what's working. Increase that baseline, so amplify that. And then off the back of that, then look at maybe testing one thing a month. Did that one thing work? Did that one change work in our business? Did we find that video worked more for us this month compared to, more cold outreach, whatever it was? So we always allow a certain amount of time, but we'll always look to only test one thing at once so we can truly monitor the effectiveness of it.
Okay, so do we have time to talk a little bit about testing? Because that is a massive
Yep.
mind thing for a lot of people. So when I think about testing, right, that requires a really good relationship with trial and error and a really good relationship with understanding that most tests that you're going to run are going to fail. And that doesn't mean it was a waste of time. It means it was a test. For a leader that is strapped for time and strapped for money, when they hear the word test something, that immediately creates anxiety because they're like, oh my God, that means that I'm going to be gambling on a resource like time or money, which feels scarce to me. How do you respond to that?
I think, first of all, we always talk about in our company, share examples, because
Yeah.
clients will often say to us, well, you're the expert, you tell us what to do.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
always have an example where we can say, hey, here's where this worked and why it worked so effectively. We always try to show the proof of that.
Sure.
So we'll never present something to someone if we haven't got proof or validity that,
but even if they're
hey,
not following your idea, if they're just testing something, it's not
exactly.
necessarily, it's not necessarily your marketing strategy, like any marketing strategy that they want to test.
Yeah, I think from the reality is, guys, you're going to be in a situation where it's either going to be a monetary cost or it's going to be a time cost investment in either of these, whichever you do.
Sure.
You have to have designated time to work on these. And there's a saying I always touch on. Imagine you've got a big crisis going on in the business right now. And the crisis is consuming. And as it does, some people allow crisis to take over. And I say this to everyone. I learned this from a business owner many, many years ago as a coach. He said to me, always designate time to work on those particular challenges that are going on in the business. So my biggest question back to everyone here is, you must have a designated time to be a marketer of your business, not a doer of your business, no matter what you do. 100%. You always have to be looking at allocating time to be working on one of those things. And it's the same as a crisis. If you don't block the time, it will either consume everything or no time will be allocated for it.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally what I solve in my book that's coming out. This can't be normal. I have a whole section on time-bound testing and understanding the power in creating capacity to test things, because you can't. The day will eat you alive otherwise. So I love that. And thanks for sharing that mindset piece, because again, strategies and hacks, like we can go after every single one, but just understanding even just all the mindset that Nick was sharing and the different lens of decision making, like I hope that's some of the most powerful things you guys are taking from this conversation, because again, the strategies, the tips and tricks always change as the new cycles come in. But the concept of understanding from a high level strategy, like this kind of content, this kind of where your lead's coming from, the baseline, those things are timeless. They never change. Your little tips and tricks, those are always going to be cycling depending on the season. But if you can understand the foundational pieces, you'll always know what to go experiment and test with.
Totally. Couldn't agree more.
Yes, yes. Nick, where can people go to find out more about you and the work that you're doing in childcare business growth?
I think the biggest thing for people right now is there's a great opportunity to go and try out our amazing platform, coaching platform, which is ecmastery.com. Yes. But we have a great event coming up July next year. It's already available. It's the first time we've launched it so early. Childcarebusinessgrowthlive.com. Check it out. Is going to be a phenomenal event. Hopefully we're going to have Chanie there as well if we can make it work logistically for both. Yeah. But it's going to be a great event. Lots and lots of amazing speakers. Very different approach to what's out there right now. So Childcare Business Growth Live is the big one to go and check out.
And we will put all those links in the show notes for those of you that are listening. So don't worry. Nick, thank you so much for giving us your time. Thanks for being on here and really just, I think more than anything, just removing a lot of the anxiety or just misconceptions around what it means to really be the marketer in your business. So thank you for joining us.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
If you are loving the Schools of Excellence podcast and have gotten any value out of it for your school, I would love if you can do two things for me. One, subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And two, can you please leave us a review? Reviews help other school leaders know that this is the place to learn how to build a school of excellence. And I would be so grateful if you can do that for us. Your help and support makes this show to be able to be listened by the thousands of other school leaders all around the world. Thanks so much for listening, for giving us your time and attention each and every week. And I appreciate that you have joined us.